Hi there, Amy here. I want to start with a question. Have you ever made a hire that looked good on paper, looked right on paper, the candidate felt right on paper, but still something felt slightly off early on in the process? And you talk to yourself out of that feeling. We do this in life, and when we do this in the hiring process, it can end up getting very expensive. And I think a lot of the times, the hiring problems that we end up having don't necessarily start with obvious mistakes, but they instead start with those subtle signals. And this is true in life as well. I'm sure you can think back to many undesired outcome experiences where there was a sign early on in your decision making process. And so today I want to relate this to the hiring process and how you can read those subtle signs, those signals, what is actually happening right there in the moment before it becomes expensive. And we're going to talk about the types of signals that leaders might miss, why we miss these signals sometimes when we've got the we're under pressure to maybe hire quickly, to maybe go ahead and make a decision, and how you can respond without stalling or rushing, so that optimal middle ground there in how you navigate your hiring process. I think that we don't, as humans and as leaders, I don't think that we necessarily miss the signals. I think we end up misinterpreting them because we're not necessarily listening to the data point that is surfacing. We're not paying close enough attention to pause and listen to how we're feeling and what that emotion is trying to tell us. And this can get us out of alignment in our career direction, in overcoming our challenges, in goal attainment, and of course in the hiring process. But with the hiring process, it ends up being very costly, both with time and with money. And when leaders have reached out to me for help backfilling a role, there typically was a pause, a hesitation that they had, that they sensed early on in the process, and maybe they thought that they could coach the candidate up. So they recognized that maybe one skill set wasn't there, or maybe the culture fit was potentially off, but they thought that they could coach this candidate up. Or sometimes there's often that pressure, of course, to fill the role quickly. And sometimes what we're picking up on is different than we're maybe alone in the hesitation that we're having. Maybe other members of the leadership team feel like the candidate can do the job. And so I've heard this challenge before as well. And this happens because there's, of course, pressure to move quickly. And there can be some fear there on potentially slowing the momentum if you're working, building out a team in time for product launch. And there can also be, as a leader, the desire to appear decisive. Maybe you're coming off of a bad hire. I've seen this happen before as well. And so you want to quickly get your next hire right. You want to get the right candidate in place, and you want to do it quickly. Well, when we're not, all of these challenges, these pressures, the common thread there is fear. And this is true in any area of your life. You can take and apply this to, and of course, including in the hiring process. But anytime our decisions, our actions are driven by fear, the end result is always going to be further from where we want to be. And so what I'm encouraging you to do with this video today is to reframe these signals that you are picking up on as information, not as problems. A lot of times we want to avoid problems. Any uncomfortable emotion is human nature. We want to get ourselves feeling comfortable. So we don't want to look too closely at the problem. We want to avoid it. So when we think of problems or signals that are showing up as potential problems, there can be some fear associated with that. But I think you will be more likely to harness that data point, the uncomfortable emotion, and look at it as a data point if you think of emotions as information. And that's exactly what feelings are. And uncomfortable feelings, whether it's in the hiring process, how you're doing in your career, in a certain area in your life, if there's some discomfort there, that uncomfortable emotion is trying to get your attention. And so just by talking about it more, I want to help leaders create awareness around these data points that come up during the hiring process to help in making better future choices. So let's dig in a little bit to deeper into these signals, these internal signals that you may feel. What does it feel like to help you identify and better heed your intuition in the moment during the hiring process? It can feel like a hesitation. Sometimes it can feel like a tension or maybe like a tightness. If you ever notice when somebody's maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally crossing a boundary, you feel a tightness. Or if you don't have enough information, you aren't sure about your decision or which direction you want to go. So you maybe feel a hesitation. These are examples of signals. And sometimes we can come away from an experience, including an interview with a candidate, maybe even our lead candidate, where we've got some unease after the interview. Well, this is information too, and it might feel a little bit disappointing initially because you want to get the hire in place, you want to get the right hire, you want to move quickly. And so we don't often want to pause and slow down to further explore these uncomfortable feelings. And there's often talk about how a leader goes about deciding on a candidate. What's their candidate criteria? How do they structure their process? And some leaders will say they go with their gut, and others are more focused on a structured process. My suggestion is that you apply both. Both are going to be very useful and imperative, I believe, in helping you make more of the right hires and faster and avoid those costly hiring mistakes, costly both with time and with potential revenue losses. Keep in mind that your gut instinct it's valid, it's important, it's information, but it's not telling you exactly what to do. And so you can take some comfort in that as well, and maybe get a little bit more comfortable relying, putting some more weight behind your gut, because your gut is telling you not necessarily what to do, but it's telling you where to dig deeper. And so just a couple of examples. Let's say I've heard this many times before. A candidate is strong in a lot of areas, they're checking a lot of boxes, but there's one very important skill that you haven't been able to uncover in looking at their past experience and through your questions and in the interview and their answers. You've not gotten the information that you need to understand whether the candidate has this skill. Well, that's important. And so this is your gut letting you know, I have a hesitation here. Why? Because I don't have enough information. And so then your gut is guiding you to the next direction, which is toward where you're going to get that additional information. So I encourage you to pause long enough, build this pause as a natural part of your structured interview process, so that leaders are creating this awareness around when they have these hesitations, when they have these pauses. And when the first step is to pause and feel the emotion. And then from there, you want to identify the concern. And what I mean by that is actually label the concern. And you may be familiar with Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz. He's a research psychiatrist. He's got a process that he calls 4 steps to change your brain, 4 or 5, I think it's 4. But the first one is identifying the emotion, and then the second is label it by giving it a label, putting a name on the feeling. And what this does is it creates clarity. And so this is an important step in the interview process. As you're feeling those hesitation, name your hesitation, name the emotion, and then in doing that, that's sort of a way to quantify and put some confidence in your instincts. And then that's from there is going to guide you in your next direction. Where do you need more information? That's the purpose that your instincts are serving in the interview process when they're showing up and giving you some hesitation. So then that next direction, what's that going to look like? Well, it's going to look like a clarifying step that's going to make sense to help you get the information that you need. So it could be a project for the candidate, could be a presentation, it could be an additional interview with another person within your organization. And maybe, yes, this is going to take a little bit of extra time because maybe there's some calendar challenges, there often are. Higher level leaders all leaders are busy, and the candidates are busy too. So you might have to wait a couple of additional weeks to get that extra interview step scheduled. So let's look at the additional time necessary to build this pause, and then listen to what your instincts are trying to tell you to point you in the right direction, and then to take that extra step to help you prove or disprove what it is you need to know. And I would imagine, I would say about 7 days, maybe to 14 days. So you first, the moment of just letting the feeling surface, well, that just takes a moment. And then you want to give yourself, sometimes it could take about 15 minutes to identify and label the emotion. The more you do this, the faster the process goes, and you can do it pretty quickly. Sometimes it still takes a little bit longer, but it's so helpful to identify what it is that's really going on, what you're really feeling, to then guide your next step. And then it may be another week or two to get that interview scheduled and completed. So you're looking at maybe an additional 2 weeks, but that's a lot less time than it will take to recover from a bad hire. First, realizing the bad hire and the cost to your organization, and then working to exit that wrong candidate out of the company, and then starting the process over again. So 1 to 2 weeks to add in this step here in helping you make the right hire is such a small amount of time. And then you can take and apply these steps to other areas in your life too. And then if you're feeling out of alignment, this is how you are going to quickly get yourself aligned and on track, and then make this practice part of your daily habits, and then you're going to see yourself go further faster. And the challenge when we're dealing with these cues or clues that we haven't taken the time to dig deeper in the interview process is that it's subtext. We're reading between the lines. So for example, let's say an example would be the candidate is giving polished answers, but they're more surface level. They're not deep enough. Well, then you don't have enough information. And so what you have to go off of is subtext. How confident can you really be in making the right decision when you don't have enough of the information? Now, keep in mind, we're never going to have all of the information in the hiring process and or other areas in our lives that are working to make decisions in. There's always more information to gather. But if we take too much time to gather too much information, probably the situation's going to change by the time we feel like we have enough information. But the benefit of using your instincts, your intuition, and picking up on those subtle clues and what they're trying to tell you is that they're going to help you identify where you need to get that additional information. And then you're going to be able to act on that, take the right action optimal action that's going to help you produce the end result that you're looking for, and faster. And it's when we're making our hiring decisions out based off of subtext and not quite enough information that misalignment is going to later show up, often after you've made the hire, and then we're in trouble. Then we've lost a lot of time, we've lost a lot of money. So what you want to do is you want to ask those potentially uncomfortable questions early on, when we don't have that information that we need, when we are still sometimes trying to figure out exactly what it is we need to know. It can feel uncomfortable, and we can feel like we're putting a candidate on the spot, but it's going to be a lot less uncomfortable to figure out what you need to know on the front end of the hiring process versus on the back end. So I'm encouraging you to think of combining intuition and structure. Yes, you would definitely want to have your structured hiring process with the interview steps that you're taking the candidates through, and who's involved, and what questions you're asking, what you're looking to uncover with each of those questions, and why. But you also want to use your instincts to make sure that you're picking up on those signals that could be potentially red flags. And your intuition, again, is not telling you exactly what to do, but it's telling you where to look. So hopefully that can elevate your confidence and better relying on your instincts, letting your instincts support you rather than blindly relying on them, and rather than pushing them aside, because this is where we can get into trouble in the interview process, and of course in life as well. So that's the key point right there. So I'll just say it again. Your instincts are telling you where to look, not necessarily what to do. So whenever you feel that pause, that resistance, that hesitation, this is a data point, and it's giving you a clue into it's pointing you in the direction that's going to make sense for you. So where do you need to look to find that additional information that you need? And then from there, your solution is going to surface. Once you know what direction to look, that's going to help you create the right next step in the interview process to help you better align your decisions. And a lot of times, those early exits, those hires that don't work out, maybe the candidate stayed a year and a half, a year, less than a year. These are not, if it's not a lasting hire, it wasn't the right hire. And a lot of times it's due to unexamined signals. So just talking about this challenge hopefully will bring some greater awareness and help you as a leader start to build these pauses into your hiring practice and in other areas in your life as well, to help you never make another mistake. I do think that that's possible because when we make those mistakes, which mistakes is not really a word that I love to use, because as long as we're learning from the undesired outcome, that's the term that I prefer, then we're growing. And sometimes we needed that undesired outcome to let us know where we need to grow further and get what we need to help us further better equip ourselves so that we're ready for that next big thing. But in the hiring process, again, that can be pretty expensive wager there. So if you can slow down, build that pause in, let your pause guide you, which your pause is coming from your intuition, let it guide you to that next step. And taking that extra time, maybe it's an additional 2 weeks, maybe sometimes it's a little bit more, maybe less, but that time during the interview process is going to potentially save you so much time on the back end, which is what happens when that extra time it can take a long time to recover from a bad hire. So taking that time on the front end is going to later save you time. So what are some takeaways, some action steps that you can take this week, whether you are mid-hiring process, or you can apply these questions or these steps rather to another area in your life to help you lock this in? Well, one, build this pause if you are a leader into your hiring process. And then if you're not a leader, build these pauses. Let yourself feel those pauses, those hesitations as they come up, and then name it. Give that signal. Something that comes up for you this week when you feel a hesitation, when you feel a pause, when you feel a resistance, stop and pause long enough to let yourself get curious enough to figure out exactly what it is, the emotion, and then label it. So what is name one signal that you feel as you're going about your day or your work this week? And then go ahead and ask a clarifying question when you're in an uncomfortable situation. If you're feeling discomfort, it's because you need more information. So figure out what one question that you can ask is to help you get the information that you need, even if it's uncomfortable. And the more we practice practice, then the more comfortable it gets. And remember, discomfort is data. And so we don't want to shy away from it. You want to use it. What is trying to get your attention, and why is it trying to get your attention? And that's what strong hiring is about. It's about attention. Where is your focus going? Are you giving your focus to what is getting your attention, or are you shifting your focus, trying to maybe explain or feel like you can coach up, maybe excuse the concern for whatever reason that is likely due to fear? Learning to read these signals early on in your hiring process is going to help you protect your team, protect your momentum, and protect your focus. And there are so many distractions in hiring, in leadership, and in everyday life where we're focusing is key. And sometimes that focus is on what the discomfort is. And that's going to help you lock in this process and hopefully make better hires, stronger, lasting hires moving forward. Thank you for watching. If you got some value from the video, I invite you to like and subscribe. And if you would like to connect, there's links in the description on how you can connect with me. And I'll see you in the next one.